The story begins with the narrator describing a world where humanoids blessed by the gods, humans, elves, and dwarves have been fighting against demons, blessed by darkness, for many generations. Though the demons are fewer in number, they are far stronger than the humanoids. He reveals that a wise demon king once maintained peace for 300 years until, one day, he was replaced by a new ruler who broke the peace by launching a full-out attack on the humanoids, known as the Great Invasion. As the war spread, demons destroyed countless villages within a year. One of them is the Gargan Empire, where humanoids fight bravely, yet the monsters overpowered them. However, a group of heroes fights their way toward the Demon King's castle with an order to assassinate him and stop the destruction. They successfully enter the castle after killing hundreds of demons. While running through the corridors, they are attacked by a female demon. One of the heroes, named Theron, tells the others to move ahead without him. They tell him to be careful before running away. Theron draws his sword and approaches the demon. Meanwhile, the pair reaches a giant door. One of them drinks from a vial to gain strength. Then they step inside. They are surprised to find a gem in the room. As the man steps forward, several energy spheres attack him. Yet one of them hits his leg while the other is about to hit him, so the girl jumps in front of him and creates a shield. But the dark magic from the sphere begins devouring everything it touches, swallowing her in. After her death, the Demon King appears. The man is devastated by the loss of his friends, but he gathers his strength and charges forward. While the Demon King attacks him with dark energy beams, he manages to defend himself and strike the king, but it has no effect. The Demon King fights back, forcing him to take cover behind the pillar, only for it to be destroyed moments later. He asks about the attack, and a voice tells him that it is a high-level elimination spell, capable of destroying anything it touches. He thinks nothing else would work against the Demon King, and he decides to use the sword's gemstone. It begins casting a powerful spell, unleashing its true potential, using which he finally breaks through the Demon King's defenses and kills him. Though his sword is destroyed in the process, he realizes he won, but in the process he lost everything: his home, friends, and family. He collapses due to exhaustion and is ready to die. However, the gemstone begins glowing. Thinking it is overloading and might explode, he approaches it and grabs it as the entire room fills with purple light. Now we see a butterfly flying towards a newly bloomed flower. It lands on it, releasing a sound wave, then disappears. Then he wakes up in his childhood room, confused since this should be impossible. Just then, a girl named Lise enters, and we learn his name is Kyle. She approaches him, asking if he's fine, but he hugs her, saying he had a bad dream, and begins crying while she becomes embarrassed. Yet he refuses to let go. She gets uncomfortable with his touch and tries to get free. They lose their balance and fall onto the bed with him on top of her. She pushes him away and gets angry with his behavior. She punches him hard, sending him flying back. She tells him to give her a heads up before pulling something like that, and walks away, calling him a jerk. After she leaves, he says he shouldn't feel pain if this is a dream, and then he notices the gemstone in his bed and realizes this is really happening. He looks at his reflection, saying he looks younger and all his injuries are completely healed. Looking out the window, he sees everything is normal and believes he has somehow returned to the past. He takes out the gemstone, wondering if it is a time-traveling magical item. Suddenly, his stomach growls with hunger, so he heads to the kitchen. He is surprised to find the table full of food, realizing Lise must have prepared it, just like she usually does. He sits down, takes a sip of the soup, and smiles, saying he hasn't eaten a proper meal in a long time. He begins eating eagerly. After a while, Theron walks in, saying he's hungry, but when he sees the empty plates, he panics, realizing Kyle has eaten all the food. He checks another pot and says he was excited to have this awesome meal she made, while Kyle thinks it is strange as they were fighting demons a few moments ago. He notices Kyle staring at him and asks what's wrong with him. Kyle says he's fine, then asks for the date. He replies, "It is May 24th, 2823. He realizes it is his birthday and says he'll forgive him this time, though he's still hungry, and walks out saying he has to beg Lise to make something for him. Kyle comments that Theron hasn't changed at all. He realizes he is really in the past and wonders what to do next. He heads to the shed and enters the library in the hope of finding answers. There, he is shocked to see his mom alive again, but he can't forget the sight of her death in the future. She asks why he is there, this late, but he points out it is already morning and asks if she stayed up all night reading. She replies that it is hard to keep track of time here, and he has a question about magic. She says that she will try to answer it, so he asks whether there are spells that can allow the person to time travel. She answers that they exist, yet are extremely rare, and no one has ever been able to use them as they require a lot of power. Even the greatest mage is not strong enough to cast them. He then asks if a magical item could make it happen. She is amazed by the idea but says it would still need to store a lot of energy and questions where he learned all this. He claims he read it in a book. She adds that casting the spell would require a large amount of energy unless they slaughter half the population. He knows that it has already happened. However, she doesn't think there is any catalyst strong enough to store magic. But she brings out a book and says that a divine dragon's heart is the only option. They read that the ancient magic kingdom of Zarls used it as a power source for centuries. But once its power depleted, the kingdom fell, and the heart went missing. But he realizes that he has it in his pocket. She says it's really nice since the two of them are spending time together and that he has been avoiding her lately, but she isn't mad. She says he's behaving more maturely, like he is from the future, then laughs it off and asks if Lee's cooked food for them. When he tells her he ate it all, she can't believe he did it, but he explains he ate it accidentally, and she says it is fine and refers to it as his birthday meal. He says Theron said the same thing and calls them cheap. Looking over the city, he wonders why the Demon King wanted to use the gem to return to the past. Soon, Lise approaches him and he quickly apologizes for his earlier behavior, explaining he had a strange dream that made him emotional. She asks about the dream, but he goes silent, so she asks if it was about her dying. He confirms it did, and she finds it sweet that he cares so much about her and forgives him, reminding him to enjoy his birthday. However, seeing her smile, he remembers the town burning. He says that since their town is near the demon territory, it will be the first to be attacked in the Great Invasion, and that day he lost her too, so he swore to avenge her. She calls out to him, snapping him back. She says that he's scaring her, but he says he'll be okay, though he realizes that in 3 years the peace will end and he will be forced to witness the same thing again, and he'll lose his friends, family, and everything he loves. However, he says he'll change his fate and the fate of the entire world, no matter what it takes. Later, he notes everything he remembers in a notebook, calling it his greatest advantage in altering the future. Still, he wonders who is going to believe him, so he decides to kill the Demon King before the war happens and grabs his sword. The next day he begins practicing his skills by creating a mental image of the Demon King to fight against him. He imagines being attacked and defends himself from the energy spheres, yet he quickly realizes he's not strong enough. However, he is able to use magic and wonders if his magical power has increased. He charges at the Demon King again, only to be knocked down, realizing his body cannot keep up with the magical power he possesses, and that he needs to grow stronger. Meanwhile, Lise and Theron worry about his sudden behavior change. Theron's mother, Layla, approaches them and asks what Kyle has been up to. Lise says he has been begging her for food. Layla says she'll hear the full story later and asks what kind of monster Kyle is fighting. They explain that he has been acting strangely since a bad nightmare and has started working hard. She says only a woman can make a man change overnight, which makes Lise jealous. Kyle wonders if his powers are too much for his body when Lise walks up to him and asks who the girl is. He's confused about what she's talking about, but she angrily starts shaking him. He finally throws up and passes out. Back at home, she prepares a special lunch for him as an apology, though he's still upset. Since they are all here, he decides to ask a question. Layla comments that he's like a completely different guy. He asks which leader is strong enough to unite multiple nations against a common threat. They start brainstorming, suggesting it could be a king, a high priest, or a famous hero. He realizes he could become a hero within 2 years. The others wonder what's going on, but his mother says he's simply thinking about the future, and they decide to keep an eye on him. Later in his room, he surrounds himself with every book he can find on the subject. Theron enters. Surprised to see him studying so hard, he asks if he is really serious about becoming a hero, saying it's not something just anyone can choose. Kyle agrees and asks how to make it happen, so Theron suggests killing the Demon King, though he admits it's impossible right now. Theron says strength is the most important quality for a hero, but Kyle disagrees, saying money is the top priority to cover travel expenses and equipment. He adds that having connections is the second priority, as knowing the right people can be beneficial. He continues that luck is the third requirement. Theron doesn't see it that way, so he explains that a hero must be in the right place at the right time to stop disasters. Confused, Theron asks what he is really trying to achieve by thinking of being a hero out of nowhere. He says he has his reasons and asks for his trust. Theron says if he's sure, he has his full support before leaving the room. The next day, he talks to Layla about his plan to leave on a journey. She asks if his mother knows, and he says she does, though she got emotional about it. She agrees. It's a good idea and suggests taking Theron along. They begin joking that he could act as a shield and handle chores, which angers him. He then tells Lise he will leave in 2 days and plans to head to the capital first. Even though she wants to accompany him, he refuses to take her. She reminds him that she's also training to be a warrior, but he says he wants her to stay safe. Before she can say another word, he suddenly kisses her. He promises she will be the first person he sees when he returns. She is still stunned by the kiss and asks him to come back to her safely. He assures her he won't do anything reckless, and they hug next at the market. He apologizes for making her come along, but she says it's fine. She spots a gorgeous elf at a stall, and he immediately recognizes her. He approaches her and calls her by her secret true name Excess. It is revealed that she will become one of his future lovers, though he realizes he has made a mistake since this is their first meeting. She gets angry and reaches for her sword, asking who he is, but he stops her. Thinking she might make a scene, he uses a sleeping spell, causing her to fall into his arms. However, he completely forgets that he is here with Lise, who is burning with anger that he just made a move on another girl. He says he can explain, but she refuses to listen and declares she's coming with him, and he can't stop her now. Back at the house, he sits before both girls. This time, he calls the elf by her common name Urza, yet she demands to know how he learned her true name, since only she and her parents know it. When she threatens to kill him, he realizes he cannot reveal they are lovers in the future, and he promises to tell her someday. But she doesn't trust him since an elf's real name can be used to control them. So he offers to form a divine contract with her, which will prevent him from ever using her name, and if he breaks it he will die, which shocks Lise. Urza agrees to the terms, saying they must wait for the next full moon. She decides to stay in the town, while he reveals he will be leaving on a journey. The next day, they are ready to head out. Kyle says goodbye to his mother. Lise assures her she will take care of that since she's going with him, and they begin their journey. Theron immediately begins flirting with Urza. She clarifies she's only traveling with them until the contract is completed, though they still welcome her into the group. Kyle reveals their first task is to find the Queen's hidden treasure in the Sunguard Mountains and shows them a map. However, Urza notices that it is made from a 1,000-year-old tree, which proves it is real, so they trust her. When Lise asks how they will reach the treasure room since it is a massive place, Kyle says he already has a plan. The boys begin digging as they reach the mountain, and Kyle explains that they will create a tunnel to the room to avoid traps and riddles. Urza uses her magic to keep the tunnel from collapsing. Theron asks why she's ordering them, and Kyle says because she's a serious girl and she asks them to focus on the work. At night, they return to camp, where Lise has prepared dinner. Everyone loves the food after a hard-working day, and Urza is amazed that Lise hunted a bear with her bare hands. After the meal, the girls relax in a hot spring Urza created using magic. Lise admits she's jealous that she can't use magic. Urza reminds her that she killed a bear all by herself. Lise reassures her that Kyle will not use her name for evil, though he keeps secrets. She trusts him, but if he hurts one of them, she's going to beat him. Urza is glad to meet her, while Lise notices her heart-shaped tattoo, which embarrasses her. Meanwhile, outside, Kyle is trying his best to keep Theron from spying on them. The next day, while waiting for Theron, Urza decides to confront Kyle. She asks him why he wants to become a hero, saying she still doesn't trust him and wants some answers. She also notices his rings, as he continues digging, saying he needs to work on increasing his strength. She continues to ask questions before he can answer. His shovel hits the wall of the treasure room. They open the tunnel and are shocked to see the mountain of gold. Theron rushes ahead, saying he's rich now, but Kyle tells him not to get distracted as they have to complete their mission. However, Theron is busy playing with the gold coins, while the girls call him disgusting, but he's acting like it's going to be okay. Meanwhile, he sneaks out of the room and finds his holy sword, which suddenly transforms into a young girl who is impressed that he managed to reach this place. The girl congratulates him for overcoming the challenges, but he quickly stops her from speaking because he doesn't want his friends to hear, and asks her to lower her voice. She angrily asks if he even knows who she is. He replies that she's a copy of Queen Selonia Zarls, who personally crafted this sword during her reign. She is shocked that he knows this, but he tells her he will explain later. So she returns to the sword, and he takes it out, which allows her to see all his memories of the future. She reappears and asks if he is truly from the future. He explains that he came back after touching the divine dragon's heart. Just then, he hears his friends approaching, so he tells her to keep everything secret and follow his lead. As they arrive, he grabs the sword and yells that he has found an intelligent sword that can talk. Soon the group becomes friendly with her, and she happily eats the cookies Lise packed for the journey, and refers to her as Queen. However, she explains that she's not the real queen, only a magical life form created to evaluate whether the person is worthy of the treasure. When Lise asks why she looks like a child, she says she used magic to freeze her growth, so she remained the same even after her death. She finds Kyle interesting, and gives her approval to use the sword however he sees fit. She also tells him to carry a special bag directly connected to the treasure vault. Theron asks if he can wield the sword too since he is also a swordsman, but she rejects him, saying he is unworthy. After leaving the labyrinth, they walk through the town. Selonia wants to stop at every food stall, but Theron stops her, saying they should stay together. Lise asks what is next, and he says they need to buy new gear. They enter an equipment shop where the shopkeeper greets them and asks if they have a referral. He remembers that new customers need one before shopping there. Without hesitation, he gives him 5 gold coins, which shocks him, and he tells them to look around. Inside, they meet Fezba. The owner of the shop. Selonia immediately notices that several swords were crafted in her kingdom, shocking Fezba. Before she can say too much, Kyle covers her mouth and says she reads a lot of books. He sends her to sit in the waiting area with cookies while he looks at an armor made from a dragon's skin with heat, cold, and poison resistance. He decides to buy it and tells the girls to buy whatever they need, leaving the owner speechless. He wears the armor and says it feels comfortable, and Urza selects a spirit stone amulet, while Lise likes a pair of gauntlets. Then, Kyle asks Fezba what kinds of magic stones he has in stock. He shows him explosion stones. Kyle asks for something that works against reptiles, so he shows him a blizzard stone. Kyle tells him to pack all the pieces of both types, along with all the healing potions. Fezba is shocked that he would buy the entire stock, and he puts a bag filled with gems worth 10 million coins on the table. As they leave, Fezba and the staff thank them for shopping here. Theron worries rumors will spread about them being wealthy, but Kyle tells him not to worry, since they're going to leave the next day. Theron runs off to look around while the girls head out to do some shopping. Selonia tries to visit another food stall, but he stops her. They return to the inn, where he asks whether changing the future is even possible. She says that the future is not fixed and depends entirely on a person's choices. She explains that multiple timelines exist, and when he time traveled, he created a new alternate timeline. Although she doubts events will change much, they can still try to turn the outcomes in their favor. She also reveals that 2 divine dragon hearts currently exist in this world. He asks if that means there is another copy of him as well. She explains that there is a forbidden spell capable of merging 2 souls into a single entity. She reveals that in ancient Zerls, they experimented with this theory using the souls of newborns and fusing them with artificial souls to increase their magical abilities. So it is likely that he fused with the alternate Kyle, meaning he now possesses 2 souls. She asks if he has noticed any changes, such as a sudden increase in magical power. He realizes that this happened the other day. She thinks that he may soon become capable of using top-tier magic, though he doubts it and asks if there are side effects. She says she cannot say for sure, but if he notices anything different, he should tell her about it. That night, Lise says nothing compares to sleeping in a soft bed. While Urza wants to stay awake a little longer because it's a full moon night, Lise blows out the candle, wishes her good night, and goes to sleep. Urza says this trip hasn't been bad, and that she now has friends she can rely on, including Theron. Although she still finds Kyle strange, she feels good whenever he looks at her. Suddenly, Lise says in her sleep that only she can stand beside Kyle. Urza prays to the goddess Muna to bless their journey before suddenly remembering it is the night to form the contract. Meanwhile, Kyle rests after a hard training session, and he notes that his stamina has increased. He pulls out the sword, commenting on how shiny it looks. Just then, Urza comes running. He wonders why she is looking for him this late, and she reminds him they have to make a contract. He totally forgot about that and claims he is too tired now, but she tells him to take it seriously. She reveals that when she first learned about contracts, her heart fluttered because they're similar to marriage rituals. But now she has to form one with a man she has just met. She prepares the magical circles and wakes him up. Standing inside the circle, she instructs him to speak only when she says so. As she begins the procedure, he remembers the night they formed the contract in the future timeline. In the presence of the goddess Muna, he promises never to use her true name for evil. A magical beam surrounds them, and Kyle seals the bond by kissing her. However, she gets enraged as to why he did that, but he argues that all contracts are sealed with a kiss. But she explains that only marriage contracts work that way. He awkwardly calls it a happy accident and suggests forgetting it. But instead she summons a fire spirit and orders it to burn him, calling him a pervert as an explosion occurs. The next morning, Lise wonders why the others are still sleepy. Kyle says there was an accident that kept him awake, while Urza tells him to stay quiet, so he decides not to say anything else. He asks Urza why she is still traveling with them. She replies that until she learns how he knew her true name, she intends to watch him very closely. Theron asks where they're headed next. Kyle says they are going to Arkan, claiming Selonia has psychic powers and she saw something bad would happen there. She admits she can sometimes see the future, though Lise thinks something is not right. When they arrive in Arkan, they join a crowd welcoming the future queen, Molina. The others are excited to see her, but Kyle seems worried. As Molina steps out of the carriage, the crowd cheers for her and young girls surround her. A girl carrying a bouquet suddenly trips on her way to her, so Molina comes to check on her and thanks her for the flowers, attracting admiration from everyone around her, except Kyle, who is still serious. He recognizes her royal guard Zentos, while Selonia asks if he is sure. He says he is certain, as she was only 16 when she died. Selonia asks how the princess dies. He tells her that her caravan will be attacked by a hydra while traveling from Arkan to Sains, a village recently attacked by monsters a month ago, so she wants to visit there to meet the people. She then asks whether it was not an assassination. He says there were rumors of foul play, and the suspicion was that her half-brother Prince Cairns was behind it, who happens to be in the town at the same time. But since he's an introvert, he won't make public appearances. She thinks he's suspicious, but he says there was no proof and it really was a monster attack. He intends to save her to begin his heroic tale and has to make it look natural when he rushes in to help her, although he doesn't know the exact location of the attack, so they must keep a close eye on her. Just then, Theron enters and says he wasn't able to find anything about the princess's plans. He asks why he was looking into that, so Theron proudly replies that he plans to save her from danger and make her fall in love with him. He is disappointed that he came up with the same plan, but he explains that Selonia's psychic abilities revealed that the princess may soon be in danger. Hearing that, Theron becomes more excited, feeling that he will be able to execute his plan successfully. The next day, the princess's caravan leaves the castle. Kyle and the others watch nearby while Urza asks how they're going to follow her without being noticed. Selonia reveals she has another trick, and she turns into a hawk, which allows her to follow the princess without any suspicion. She adds that her true form is the gemstone engraved inside the sword and that she can transform into anything she wants. As she flies, the others are able to view a real-time feed through the gemstone. Urza is impressed by Selonia's abilities, while Theron becomes jealous that he could use the ability to spy on people. Suddenly, Selonia says something strange is happening. The carriage drivers have stopped the horses and are attacking the guards. Kyle tells them they need to move. Meanwhile, near the carriage, the drivers kill all the guards, and then they scatter a mysterious powder around the area. Just then, Kyle's group arrives, and he quickly uses her abilities to knock the enemy down. As they tie them up, Theron checks the carriage and confirms the princess is alive, though unconscious. Kyle says they need to keep her safe until guards arrive, but suddenly, a pack of hellhounds surrounds them. While the group fights the monsters, the hellhounds also begin to eat the unconscious drivers. Kyle tells Theron to drive the carriage, but he replies that the enemy has cut the ropes, which will take time to fix. At that moment, the ground starts shaking, and they hear footsteps approaching through the forest. Selonia comments that he was correct about the danger, so he tells them to stay here and protect the princess while he goes into the forest alone to fight the Hydra. Meanwhile, the girls continue fighting the wolves, and Urza summons a salamander to burn them away. As Kyle moves deeper into the forest, Selonia asks if he can slay the monster. He explains that a Hydra's strength depends on the number of heads it has. Since he has killed a 3-headed Hydra before, he believes he still has a chance. He approaches the monster, and it realizes it has 8 heads, which freaks him out a little. Selonia asks if he should retreat, but he says it is already too late, and now he has to fight. 2 of the heads charge toward him, but since they have simple attack patterns, he easily dodges them. When the monster releases poison, Kyle's poison resistance armor completely nullifies it, and he throws a cold stone toward the monster and instantly freezes it. Then he follows it with an explosion stone that damages it. The monster releases more poison, but he charges forward and slices off one of its heads, though he knows the battle is far from over as it regenerates its head. Back near the carriage, the others continue fighting the wolves but stop when they hear Hydra's scream. However, they can't help him as the wolves keep coming after them. Back in the forest, Kyle continues throwing blizzard stones to weaken it. Still, no matter how many heads he cuts off, they keep regenerating. The enraged monster grows more aggressive, so he decides to change his strategy. He grabs all the remaining explosive stones, casts haste on himself, and charges directly toward the Hydra. He manages to pierce its chest and puts the stones deep inside its body before being thrown away. Then he waits for the plan to work, and in moments, the stones activate, causing a massive explosion that destroys the monster. However, he thinks he should return because he's completely covered in the Hydra's remains. Meanwhile, the others finally defeat all the wolves and worry about him. Just then, he comes out of the bushes and asks if they're okay. They say fine, and are surprised that he was able to kill a Hydra alone. Still, he becomes embarrassed because he's still covered in the monster's guts, forcing him to take a bath. After returning, Theron explains that the princess and her two maids are still unconscious from poisoning. He tells the girls to give them the potions they bought, and Theron finds a pouch that the driver scattered earlier to lure the monsters. He realizes that the princess's death was never an accident. It was a planned assassination made to look like a monster attack. Meanwhile, back in the city, Khernas and Zentos are in a room, and when one of the cards suddenly stops glowing, Zentos suggests sending a squad to the forest. Back at the carriage, the princess finally wakes up and is shocked to learn she survived the attack. She says her luck still hasn't run out and asks if they are the ones who recused her. Theron immediately tries to flirt with her, but Lise punches him so hard that he passes out. The maids also wake up, and one of them immediately warns Kyle to stay away from the princess and tells her it's fine. Then Kyle bows and explains that they happened to be passing nearby when they saw bandits attacking her guards, so they intervened. The princess is glad they were here to save her and asks to see what happened outside. But Kyle warns her. It's unpleasant to look at, but she insists and steps out of the carriage. She observes the dead driver and asks if any of her guards survived, but Kyle sadly tells her they were all killed before they arrived. At that moment, Selonia reports that soldiers from Arkan are heading their way. Kyle thinks it is good news, but the princess tells them they must leave immediately or else they'll kill them all since the captain of their kingdom's army, Zentos, wants her dead. He's stunned to learn that Zentos is truly responsible for the attack. Then the princess tells her maid, Arka, to burn the guards' bodies with her fireball, which will make it harder for the soldiers to identify whether she was among the dead. She then tells Arka to drive the carriage and instructs them to ride with her as well. Before leaving, Theron uses the last of the powder to attract the monsters to slow the soldiers down. Finally, Arka drives the carriage safely through the fire, while everyone remains confused about what's going on, and Kyle still can't believe Zentos is a bad guy. As they continue moving, Princess Molina thanks them for saving her life, but Kyle warns her that she's still in danger and is sure that Zentos is behind this. She says that her brother Khernas is pulling Zentos' strings from behind and explains that the previous night, she was drugged, but before losing consciousness, she heard their plan for how they're going to tell that she died in a monster attack while traveling to Sane's village. She admits she always knew her brother was jealous of her, though she never imagined he would go this far. Just then, Theron recognizes the little girl as the same girl who tripped while giving out her flowers the other day. She tries to deny it, but Molina is impressed that he noticed and explains that she occasionally stages a few things to improve her image. Molina adds that her brother is incompetent, but having Zentos by his side changes things, since he managed to catch her off guard. She explains that's the reason she trusts only Kilran and the 5th Battalion, an all-female soldiers to escort her. Unfortunately, they were busy with a ceremony in the capital, so Zentos was assigned to her. Kyle still struggles to believe Zentos is involved, but he can see that she's telling the truth, so this makes Zentos his enemy. He thinks Zentos might try blaming them for attacking her guards, but Theron says they can't leave her behind and asks what to do next. Molina says that if they escort her back to the capital, they would be rewarded. However, Kyle says they don't need money, they only want to keep her safe. She tells them that Kilran and her group will arrive by morning. Once they notice she's not there, they'll start looking for her. Theron suggests hiding in Sane's village until then, but Kyle says it is dangerous since it is the first place they'll look and destroy the village. So he suggests they turn back, charge through the 2nd Battalion, and meet the 5th back in Arkan sooner, but she's confused if this plan will really work. Meanwhile, Selonia reports that she has checked multiple times and confirms Zeltos is not with the approaching army. Melenis notices the talking sword and says it's a useful tool. He tells her that Zeltos isn't with the army, so their plan might work. Lise gives Molina a box filled with healing potions to drink if she gets injured, leaving her stunned. They have so many items with them, and ask who they actually are. Kyle says they're aspiring heroes who happen to be in the right place at the right time. Back in Arkan, Zentos informs Khernas that the plan failed, though his army is hunting her down. Khernas asks why he's not leading them himself, so he says that if he leaves he would force him to deal with Kilran, which scares him. Still, he warns him they can't have any more screw-ups. Elsewhere, the soldiers searching for the princess stop when they spot their scout, who reports that the carriage is heading this way, so they get ready to engage them, and the vice captain tells the soldiers to aim for the legs. As he sees the carriage, he finds it suspicious, and suddenly several explosive stones fall from the sky, which is part of Kyle's plan, using Selonia to launch an airstrike. Despite the attack, the vice captain tries to gather them, but it's already too late as the carriage passes through them easily. Urza uses magic to protect the carriage while Kyle drives it, and Theron is enjoying throwing the stones at the soldiers. Inside the carriage, the maids cling tightly to Molina. The vice captain orders the surviving soldiers to get up so they can still chase them. After escaping, the group drinks potions. Suddenly, one of the carriage wheels shatters from the earlier damage, forcing them to continue on foot. Kyle asks Urza whether she can use wind magic, though she thinks it would not be useful. At that moment, Selonia reports that around 30 soldiers have resumed chasing after them. He is happy about the smaller number, though he thinks someone must stay back to slow them down. Urza tells him to be rational, but he says it will be fine because Theron is strong enough to handle the task. Theron is confused about what they're saying. Kyle asks Urza if she can use her speed spell, and although she thinks it's a bad idea, she uses it anyway, and they start running, wishing Theron good luck, but he's not confident he can do it, so he decides to wave a white flag as the soldiers approach him. He even praises Kernaz while begging for forgiveness and reveals that Kyle was the mastermind behind everything, while he merely followed orders. He tries to bribe them by showing a bag full of coins, but the soldiers say that the princess is not inside the carriage, so the vice captain orders to kill him, but he doesn't want to die so young, but the soldier raises his sword. Meanwhile, Urza worries Theron might actually die, but Kyle says it was the only option. Lise then reveals that Theron is actually stronger than both of them. Back at the battlefield, Theron chops off the vice captain's head, revealing he was just acting to misguide them. He removes his magical rings and bracelets, before easily slicing through 3 soldiers' heads. He cuts them down so easily that it looks like he's chopping vegetables. Then he uses explosive stones to scare the horses away. As they continue running, Kyle explains that Theron constantly keeps running away to practice his skills and calls him a genius swordsman. Lise adds that he's very serious about his training, and neither one of them wants to fight him. They explain that although he behaves like a fool, he's terrifying in real combat because he rarely holds back. When only 8 soldiers are left, he stops fighting and tells them his task is not to kill them, but to slow them down, which he believes he did pretty well, and advises them to run away. They consider it a good choice and decide to flee. However, he activates some explosion stones and throws them at them while he drinks the potion. Afterward, he kills every remaining soldier. He says it was exhausting, though he still had a good training. Back in Arkan, Zentos notices the 3rd card stop glowing, which means the army is in trouble, so he decides to go to the forest, leaving a handful of soldiers to guard Kernaz. Selonia spots him entering the forest, and quickly warns Kyle before Zentos shoots her down with an energy ball. He asks if she's okay, and she says she'll be fine but compliments Zentos' shooting skills. Then he tells Molina to hide in the bushes while instructing Urza and Lise to wait for Theron. Molina realizes Zentos is approaching and asks whether he can defeat him. She finds his behavior towards Zentos suspicious and thinks he's hiding something, yet she decides to trust him and prays for his safety. He says that he'll defeat Zentos. We see Zentos getting deeper in the forest, but he stops seeing Kyle in his path. Kyle asks why he came alone. He replies that he has no intention of losing more soldiers because he can easily kill him and his entire squad. Kyle asks him to surrender and asks the princess to forgive him instead, but he refuses. Then Kyle asks why he wants her dead, but he tells him it's no use as he'll die in moments anyway, and draws his sword. So Kyle also prepares to fight. They both use magic to buff their skills before charging ahead simultaneously. He attacks him, but Kyle dodges in time. Then he quickly follows up with illusion magic, though Kyle gets away in time. He is shocked, realizing he's the first person to survive his best attack. At that moment, it is revealed that in the original timeline they're both friends, and Zentos was the one who taught him to fight with the magic sword. As they continue fighting, Kyle struggles to keep up with Zentos, since at this point he is far superior to Kyle. Zentos keeps landing powerful strikes at him, and all he can do is defend himself. Then Zentos fires magical bullets at him. While he's busy deflecting them, Zentos targets his foot, but he manages to block it and jumps backward. Zentos calls it unfair, though he replies that his master taught him that and throws an explosion stone at him. Zentos deflects it back and the explosion blows him away. Zentos immediately attacks him, but he blocks it, and as their swords clash, Zentos' blade cracks, forcing him to fall back. He again offers Zentos a chance to surrender, but Zentos tells him to stand still so he can kill him. However, Zentos realizes he cannot drag the fight for much longer and decides to end it with his special attack. He asks Kyle for his name. After Kyle answers, the two charge at each other simultaneously. Zentos manages to knock his sword away, creating the perfect opportunity for a killing blow, but the instant his sword strikes Kyle's chest, the blade shatters into pieces after hitting the dragon's heart hidden inside his armor. Even with a broken sword, Zentos charges again. At that moment, Kyle recalls a memory from the previous timeline where Zentos was proud he was able to serve the king, though after the kingdom fell, he had to fight for himself alone. Kyle asked whether leaving the kingdom was hard, but he says he felt free. Back in the present, tears fill Kyle's eyes as he swings his sword and cuts through him, causing him to drop to his knees. He asks why Kyle allowed him to deflect his blade earlier. Kyle clarifies that he tried to attack him with his full strength, but Zentos overpowered him. However, Kyle knew Zentos would always go for the kill the instant he found a chance, because that is simply the way Zentos fights. Zentos calls him strange and asks for forgiveness before he passes away. Kyle says that there are people he must protect, and Zentos was one of them. He then apologizes for failing to save him and calls him his brother in arms. Back in town, Kernaz is pacing in the room, wondering why Zentos isn't here yet. Just then, Kilran and her squad enter the room. He asks who gave them permission to do so. Then Melania enters, orders Kilran to arrest him, and tells her to use force if needed. And as she leaves the room, they start beating him. He then thanks Kyle's group for everything they have done. Kyle is grateful that she trusted them, and she asks them to come with her to the capital. Inside the royal castle, Lise and Urza are amazed by how fancy the place looks, while Selonia is more excited to taste every delicious sweet. And like always, Theron is flirting with a maid in the corner. Kyle apologizes for everyone's behavior, but Molina tells him to relax a little. Just then, her father enters the room. She approaches him, while the others take some time to realize he is the king and stand up to pay their respects. Molina introduces them as the people who saved her life. The king tells them to relax, as right now he stands as a father rather than a ruler. He is disappointed that Kernaz would go to such great lengths, though he still cannot understand why Zentos sided with him. Molina believes they should quietly investigate if demons or other nations were involved as well. The king agrees, and they must keep all this a secret. Kyle assures them that if they want to keep it, their lips are sealed. Molina says they can trust him, and the king decides to go with her judgment. He declares that they would be appropriately rewarded and walks away. It is revealed that the citizens were told the prince and princess's caravan was attacked by monsters while traveling, and most of the 2nd Battalion was killed, including Captain Zentos. Because of Kernaz's injuries, he was sent away for treatment. Next, people are gathered in the royal court, where Kyle and his group will be rewarded for their bravery. As they kneel before the king, he announces that they will receive a saint's medal for rescuing Molina without thinking about their own lives. Kyle accepts the honor humbly while the crowd congratulates them, which makes Kyle happy as his hero's journey has officially begun, though he still has a very long road ahead. That night, the king drinks alone, frustrated that both Kernaz and Zentos were useless. He fears Molina would inherit the throne and become a better ruler than he is, something he doesn't want, so he has to come up with another plan. Just then, Kyle appears in disguise, confronts him, and grabs him from behind. He reveals that in the original timeline he once approached him to support nearby kingdoms during the Great Invasion, but he refused, causing countless more deaths, and ultimately, Zergas was destroyed as well. Kyle forces him onto the balcony and says that Zentos was loyal only to the king, and if anyone would send him to kill Molina, it could only have been him. He replies that everything would be fine if Zentos had succeeded, so Kyle wants to prevent future assassination attempts on Molina's life, so he pushes the king off the balcony, which was later ruled out as an accident after getting drunk, but to spare his image, they told people that he died from a heart attack. The next day, Urza thinks it's strange that the king died after the award ceremony, but Theron is glad he didn't die a day earlier. Kyle is not with them because he's sitting with Molina, who tells him she is engaged to the 3rd prince of the Gargan Empire, arranged by her father so he could gain control of Karen's city, located between the 2 kingdoms. However, she now plans to reject the arrangement. He asks what would happen to Karen's city if she declined, and she replies that since it was a secret marriage proposal, no official agreement was drafted, so Karen's city should legally remain under her authority. Still, she wants him to travel there to gain the governor's approval. That night, he is lost in thought. Selonia appears and asks what's going on. He worries about how the Gargan Empire might respond, but she tells him not to overthink, and she suggests Karen is having some trouble since its governor didn't come to pay respects after the king's demise. She believes Molina wants him to go there to look into it. He thinks meeting the governor would be a great opportunity, and he also wants to spend some time away from Molina. Then she says Molina must have high hopes for him. The next day, as he's ready for the task, Molina asks if he thinks she's cold-hearted for not openly grieving since she lost her father. She is sad because she loved him as he was always king to both his children, though she now doubts if he ever felt the same. She suddenly asks if he is interested in joining the royal guards and officially serving as her knight. He declines the offer, though he promises to rush back if she ever needs help. She laughs and says she was only joking before wishing him a safe journey. As they leave, he's devastated that she was messing with him while Molina watches him from the balcony. A girl joins her and asks if she managed to win Kyle's heart. Molina thinks that they should keep him as an ally, but the girl doesn't like it since they know nothing about him, so she tells her to look into it. Next, Kyle and the others visit Fezba's equipment shop before departing. Fezba congratulates him on getting a medal, and he's sure that Kyle will achieve great things. Theron asks if his sword is ready. Fezba hands it over. Theron immediately asks if he has a better sword for him. Fezba says he would ask his connections to forge a new one for him. Kyle then asks whether he knows anything about Karen. Fezba says the city is run by the Blacksmiths Guild, which creates many issues that make life difficult there, though the situation has improved since it became a state. Kyle thanks him for the information, while Theron thinks he would meet someone there, but Fezba tells him he might find a better sword instead, since they have the best blacksmiths in the kingdom. Theron asks if he won't mind him buying a weapon elsewhere, and he replies that as long as he continues visiting his shop, he doesn't mind and wishes them luck. Finally, the group leaves and begins their journey toward Karen. Soon, they arrive at Karen and wonder how people manage to build an entire city on a mountain. Selonia explains that whenever people find ores in the area, they use magic to raise the land and create mountains. She adds that the city was originally founded during the Zurl's era, and the mountains surrounding it were formed manually. Suddenly, something flies over them, with human riders carrying a Gargan Empire flag. Kyle says they're the Empire's Wyvern Knights, and Theron hopes they're not here for the same reason as them, though Kyle says they should move forward. Once they reach the embassy, Kyle tells a guard they're here from Zergus and requests an audience with the ambassador. While the guard checks their details, Urza feels uncomfortable, being surrounded by so many dwarves since they don't like each other. Just then, the ambassador arrives. She introduces herself as Miranda and asks if they're the messengers Molina sent. Kyle is speechless because he knows her from the future. Lise pushes him ahead, causing him to quickly grab Miranda's hands and introduce himself awkwardly. After reading Molina's letter, she says she didn't expect such an unusual group of messengers. Kyle asks if she personally knew Molina, and she explains that she was one of Molina's tutors a few years ago. She's grateful that they saved Molina's life and wants to help them, though Governor Bax is very ill and refuses to meet anyone. However, since the Queen sent them herself, Bax is obligated to meet with them. She then leads them toward the governor's house. Theron says he isn't here for official meetings and decides to look around. As they reach the Gargan embassy, Miranda warns them to be careful since it is outside of their jurisdiction. Suddenly, the Gargan ambassador approaches them. She doesn't like the man, but the Gargan's court sorcerer steps forward and introduces himself as Alzard and explains that they're on their way to meet the governor. Miranda asks why they didn't meet her first, since Karen is under Zergus rule, but he says they don't require her permission to meet diplomats, making it obvious they both hate each other. Miranda suggests that they're also going to meet the governor and suggests walking together. Kyle introduces himself, and Alzard recognizes him as Zergus's rising hero and reveals that he was once Kyle's mother's classmate around 20 years ago. They shake hands and are grateful to meet each other, but Miranda doesn't like it, and Alzard looks suspicious. As they reach the governor's mansion, a guard stops them at the gate, claiming Bax is too ill to meet anyone. Miranda warns that if the governor doesn't get fit in 2 days, she's going to replace him. Alzard says he had been looking forward to meeting him, though he accepts it and leaves. Miranda is surprised by how calmly he walked away and says he knows that Molina canceled the engagement. She says the Empire will now manipulate people to obtain what they really want. She hopes the new governor will handle the situation better. Kyle asks if she already has a candidate. She says it's Gazis, the best blacksmith in the region. Meanwhile, Theron is walking through the town searching for both a better sword and attractive girls, though he finds neither. Suddenly, he sees a group of men grabbing a girl, so he jumps in to save her and punches the man away. When he introduces himself, he learns that she is actually a boy, which freaks him out. and he falls to the ground in despair. One of the thugs tells him to walk away, and he agrees, so he begins to leave. But he stops and asks if the boy has an older sister who looks like him. The boy replies that his sister is 5 years older, causing him to immediately return and defend him again. The thugs charge at him and are about to punch him, but he easily knocks them to the ground. The boy calls him amazing and introduces himself as Go, a magic item artificer. Theron is surprised to hear that and asks why the thugs were after him. Go says they are debt collectors. He initially thinks Go's parents borrowed money, but Go reveals he took on the debt himself. Theron says that Go's looks could easily fool anyone and wants to meet his sister. Unfortunately, Go reveals she's already married, disappointing him once again. He says he should have mentioned that earlier. Theron hits him on the head for tricking him. Elsewhere, Miranda meets with Gazus and tries to convince him to become the next governor, but he refuses. Meanwhile, Kyle and the others wait outside the room until Go suddenly arrives together with Theron. Kyle tells Theron that Gazus is a skilled blacksmith who might forge a sword for him, and Theron says he doesn't really want to come here. Go says it'll take some time and leads them to the kitchen. While Theron and Lise look around, Go apologizes for the mess, saying that nobody has cleaned the house since his sister got married. Kyle wonders about Go's family, so he explains that he and his sister are Gazus' stepchildren and that their mother died 2 years ago. While Go prepares tea, Kyle notices several blueprints lying on the table and is shocked. He recognizes seeing the working artifact from the future and realizes he'll become a great inventor one day. Go looks confused, so Kyle explains that golems were ancient magical weapons from the Zerls and the technology got lost, and during the Great Invasion, the Empire deployed a prototype golem to fight against the demons. They show the plans to Selonia, who is impressed that he modeled it on the Titan's design, and sees there's no reason it shouldn't work. Kyle becomes excited, thinking they can mass-produce golems to fight the demons in the future, and tells him to keep working on it. Go says it would take him 10 years to make it, but he tells him to finish it in a year and gives him enough money to do the work, and tells him to keep it a secret. But Go says many people already know about it, but he says he should tell them that he failed and return everyone's investments because he'll cover the losses as well, which excites him. Meanwhile, Miranda fails to convince Gazus to accept the position, but before leaving she tells him she'll be back soon. Then Kyle asks Gazus for a favor. Gazus guesses they want a sword and refuses, saying he only works for regular customers. Go asks him to at least hear them out, so he considers it. He says that many dwarves would reject them because they travel with an elf, though he says he doesn't care about them. Theron says he wants a new sword. He recognizes its maker and asks what kind of sword he wants. Theron says he wants something like Kyle's sword. He is stunned after seeing another Zarl sword and calls it the finest blade he has ever seen. However, he admits he cannot forge something like it at present, so he gives it back and returns to his work, asking them to leave. Theron leaves disappointed that he still couldn't find a sword, but they realize he said he had seen something like Selonia before, so they decide to return the next day to question him again. Back at the Zergus embassy, Kyle is sad that Gazus cannot help them, but he can't stop thinking about Go's project. He replies that in the original timeline he must have failed, so he was forced to sell the blueprints, while Selonia adds that the Empire must have found them and completed the golem. He worries they can't share too much knowledge, since there is a chance of a war between the kingdoms before the Great Invasion even occurs. Selonia says it would be entertaining, though she says she's joking after seeing how serious Kyle looks. The next morning, Alzard visits him and invites him to lunch. After that, he can even ride a wyvern and he can bring Miranda and his friends with him. Kyle agrees, though he asks if riding a wyvern would be alright since it's Empire's secret. But he says that they can make an exception because it was Kyle's mother who invented the technique. He adds that despite being her senior, he always admired her due to her abilities, and he walks away. Selonia appears and warns him to be careful around Alzard because he's a powerful sorcerer capable of casting high-level spells. Later, Kyle and Miranda arrive at the Gargan embassy. Miranda is surprised none of his friends came along, but he says they are not interested in attending formal meals. As they approach the meeting room, he feels a familiar sensation, and the moment he opens the door, they find Alzard murdered by a female demon. The maid screams in fear, while he can't believe that a demon is here. The girls are scared because it's their first time seeing a demon, but for Kyle, it is common, as he is used to fighting them in the old timeline, and he calls them humanity's greatest enemy. The demon prepares to fight, and so does Kyle. They both charge ahead, and she manages to stab him with her claws, but he counters with a magic blast which appears to injure her. He asks if she wants more, though he realizes he has been careless because he isn't wearing his armor or carrying his sword, and cannot use much magic. When the guards arrive, the demon realizes she can't fight all of them and decides to flee. Kyle follows her only to find she has vanished, which is hard to believe afterward. They discover that nearly half the embassy's guards and officials have been brutally murdered without anyone hearing a thing. Meanwhile, back at Go's house, Selonia helps him continue his research, and she's impressed by how much he has already learned at such a young age. He asks how old she really is, but before she can answer, Lise enters and tells them to take a break because the tea is ready. At the dining table, he apologizes to Lise for making her clean up, but she doesn't mind since she has been doing this for Kyle and Theron. When he asks where Kyle is, Urza explains that Kyle is currently meeting someone from the Empire. Theron asks Go whether his father ever mentioned a sword similar to Selonia. He reveals that there is a holy sword called Rand, forged 2,000 years ago and wielded by the hero Randolph during his battle against the demon king of that era. So, the sword was named in his honor. Theron asks where it is now and he believes it might be at Governor Bax's place, though he doubts Bax would ever hand it over since it is considered a national treasure. Suddenly, Theron senses that the house is surrounded by some thugs, but he says they're not the same men from the other day, so he gets ready to welcome the guests and tells them to be careful. Go asks if he's certain, and Lise says Theron's instincts are usually accurate in situations like this. She tells Go to hide immediately, though he wants to help them. Selonia points out he isn't a fighter, so he would only get in the way, and it will be better if they both stay hidden. Outside, multiple armed men quietly cover all the exits, and as one of them grabs the front door handle, Theron kicks it open. Then he scares another man, saying that he'll be perfect for interrogation and knocks him down too. Then he casually offers the remaining men a choice to fight him or run. Meanwhile, two men enter through the back door and are confronted by Lise and Urza. Urza notices that their blades are laced with poison, capable of paralyzing someone with a single cut. Lise understands and carefully engages one of the men while carefully avoiding his knife. She easily disarms him and knocks him unconscious. However, she worries she may have hit him too hard and hopes Urza's guy will be up for questioning. Meanwhile, when the second man charges towards Urza, she uses a water spirit to stop his knife, and then it traps the guy in a water bubble, slowly suffocating him until he passes out. She admits she may have gotten too far as well, though she thanks the spirit for helping her. The girls are relieved that both attackers are still alive, so they tie them up. Go is both terrified and impressed by their strength. Soon, Theron arrives with another tied-up guy and begins interrogating him. The guy refuses to speak, so Theron suggests he cooperate because the girls are expert torturers. He claims Lise can turn any household tool into a weapon, and while everyone uses knives and forks, she can use a ladle to slice through a person's skin and pour salt into the wounds. Then he tells him that Urza could continuously heal the victim with potions so that they can continue torturing him. Theron adds that he would beg for death, though they won't stop until they get answers. He reminds him that they also have two more guys so they won't spend much time on him. The man starts talking and reveals they were hired to kidnap Go. Go mentions there have been multiple kidnappings recently, though the knights still have no idea who is behind it. Theron asks why they came fully armed just to take a boy, and he says this time they were told to kill anyone who comes in between. When Theron asks where the kidnapped people were taken, the man replies they were told to leave them to a house outside the city. Theron says it was idiotic to attack in broad daylight, but he says they have always been discreet in the past, and mentions no one would have to rescue some outsiders. Just then, a demon arrives outside and forms an energy sphere. Theron senses it, and tells everyone to get down just before a massive explosion rips through the wall. Everyone manages to survive and Lise suggests they should see who attacked them, but Theron says they should stay inside. Selonia asks if he wants to go alone, but he says he's not going to chase whoever it is, and she praises his decision, saying she is sure the attacker was a demon. Later, they meet with Kyle and Miranda. Miranda says that the political situation has become far worse after the demon attack, especially because the Empire might think the kingdom was behind the attack. Selonia says they should also worry about the demons since they have far more destructive power that they can even remove the city off the map. Kyle knows it's risky to go after them because they still need to uncover who is behind the kidnappings. Miranda apologizes for not mentioning the kidnapping sooner, and she suspects Bax could be behind it, though she's not sure why he would gain from committing crimes in his own city. Just then, a man arrives and announces that Bax's mansion is on fire. By the time they get there, the entire building has already burned to the ground. Villagers begin searching through the rubble for clues. While Theron says that he wasn't able to find the holy sword, Miranda joins them and says they couldn't find a single body, which is odd since Bax was too ill to even walk. Urza asks who else could have started the fire, and she replies until they find Bax. He's the prime suspect because he may have destroyed the mansion to eliminate evidence. Kyle remembers that she is a cold-hearted commander who maintains supply lines and spies throughout the Great Invasion. Just then, Go arrives and they ask him why he came. He reveals that he heard about the fire and rushed over because Gazus had been summoned by Bax earlier, and he is now missing too. Hearing that, Miranda falls to the ground and blames herself for nominating Gazus as the next governor and believes she placed a target on his back. She gets emotional thinking that something bad might happen to him. Suddenly, Kyle remembers a conversation from the future in which a drunk Miranda reveals she hadn't always been so cold-hearted. She once had a lover, but he lost his life because of a selfish decision she made. And he realizes the life-changing event she referred to was Gazus's death. Back at the embassy, Go reveals that Miranda and Gazus are lovers, and Lise admits it's difficult to imagine. But Go says things have been difficult recently, because Gazus started avoiding her, even though Miranda was trying her best to support him. He calls Miranda stubborn and she thinks it's her last chance at love. Meanwhile, Kyle looks after her and tries to think of anything useful from their interaction in the previous timeline. He recalls her mentioning secret tunnels hidden beneath Bax's mansion, and he puts on his armor and tells the group he's going to look around. He asks Urza to accompany him. Theron wants to come too, while Lise refuses to stay behind, so he tells Go to stay here and look after Miranda until they come back. Elsewhere, deep beneath a hidden tunnel, a man is standing near a table with a corpse on it. On the way there, Theron asks Kyle if he's certain about the secret passage. He is sure and asks Urza to use magic to dig through the rubble. She points out that her magic will run out before she even clears half the rubble, but he tells her to drink as many magic potions as necessary. She asks if he really knows what he's asking. He admits he knows the potions are very effective. Then he begs her to do this to help Gazus, and they all encourage her that she can do this, and she agrees before walking toward the ruins. Meanwhile, Kyle asks Theron whether the demon he saw at Gazus's house was a male. He says it was, making Kyle realize there are at least 2 demons in the city. Night falls, and Urza continuously drinks the potion so that she can keep the rock Norm digging. She thinks she's going to throw up. Suddenly, all their efforts pay off when she finds something and calls everyone over. Kyle opens a secret door and finds a secret underground passage. As they head in, Kyle warns them to stay alert because the demons could still be nearby. Theron compares the demon he saw with his mother. Kyle agrees that demons can be just as deadly as Layla during a fight. Lise says she'll tell this to Layla when they return. While Urza is impressed that Kyle is knowledgeable about demons, he adds that every demon is dangerous. Since Urza is tired of using magic, he wants Lise to take her back to the surface, but they get angry, refusing to turn back after coming this far. He tries to convince himself that everything will be fine because Theron is here this time, and if the demon he is scared of shows up, they could protect them. Just then, Lise notices an opening ahead. They rush towards it only to see the table with a corpse on it and a magic circle around it. Kyle realizes what it is because he has seen it before, though the others remain confused. So Selonia reveals it is a forbidden ritual. Theron asks what it is, and she explains that the spell converts human life force into magical energy capable of powering a forbidden spell. Kyle recognizes the corpse's outfit as the man who met them outside the mansion earlier, and the pile of bodies must be the kidnapped citizens. Lise wonders why anyone would sacrifice innocent people simply to cast a spell. Selonia observes the circle and reveals that it slowly drains the life force of each victim. However, the catalyst is too unstable to contain that much energy and will soon explode, destroying half the city with it. Theron says they have to stop it, and Kyle asks what kind of spell they are trying to cast, but she has no idea. Suddenly, she senses 2 demons approaching. The group immediately hides nearby just before the demons arrive. The male demon is happy that another extraction is complete, and he asks the female if she still dislikes the mission, reminding her they're just working with one human to gather information peacefully. But she asks how killing humans inside an embassy counts as peaceful or necessary. He replies that he was simply following the human's lead on the matter, and it was he who requested the attack on the embassy. She says that they were ordered to avoid drawing attention and minimize the casualties. He replies that the attack on the embassy was the cover for a kidnapping happening elsewhere. He reminds her that their true objective is to claim the item their king wants, and if they have to cooperate with humans, they will do it, to prove their loyalty to their king. Then he burns the corpse lying on the table. She reveals that working with a human irritates her. He tells her they have no other option and suggests stepping outside for some fresh air. As they leave, the group is relieved that they didn't get caught. Theron calls them morons, while Selonia finds it strange that the Demon King ordered his minions to reduce casualties. Kyle says that right now, they should focus on finding Jesus and Bax. Deeper inside the tunnel, they locate a furnished room where Jesus lies tied up on the ground. They rush over to check on him. Just then, an old man asks who they are. Kyle recognizes him as Governor Bax. Theron asks if a sick man is hiding inside a cave. Bax realizes they're the messengers from Zergas and vows to protect Karen from both the Empire and the Kingdom. Kyle says they know Bax is sacrificing human lives, and demands to know why. He replies he's doing it to save the city. Kyle asks what he is trying to protect the city from. Jesus reveals that Karen's mines have completely dried up. Bax tells him to stay quiet, but Jesus says the truth will eventually come out and he should accept it is over. Jesus explains that Karen has the mines, and without the ores, the city will lose everything. There will be no jobs, and Zergas will take control. Still, Bax insists none of that will happen under his command, but Jesus tells him to open his eyes and accept that Karen is done. Bax says that he'll do anything to restore Karen's glory, and for something that big some sacrifices mean nothing. Selonia says that he's terminally ill and will die within a month. Kyle realizes the demons took advantage of his vulnerability. Just then, the demon arrives and says they didn't take advantage of anyone. He only suggested a proposition. Meanwhile, Miranda wakes up. Go is glad to see that she is fine. She gets emotional when she thinks about Gazis, but Go tells her that Kyle and the others will surely find him. Back inside the cave, Kyle asks what his plans are. The demon says he doesn't owe him an explanation, though he decides to reveal that since the mountains were created by magic, there are still more veins beneath the surface. Kyle asks if the forbidden spell can provide the magic to draw them up, and he replies that he's just helping a city in need in exchange for the holy sword, Rand, because their demon king desires it. Kyle asks how he even knows that the sword is here. The demon says that initially, he came here to investigate humans and their forces, because Karen is famous for its weapons capable of killing his kind. During his investigation, he discovered the city's situation and decided to help the governor. Kyle acts like he's impressed by the plan. Then the female demon tells him to stop revealing unnecessary details. Kyle realizes he won't say anything more, and finally draws his sword, revealing they let him talk to learn more about their plan. The male demon says he's wrong because he only said what he wanted to tell them before killing them. The female tells him to avoid fighting, but he totally ignores her and insists they must eliminate them. Hearing this, Bax panics and says they have a deal and they can't leave before fulfilling their side of the bargain. Kyle asks him if he really thinks demons would honor a deal with humans, and reveals that the catalyst they're using has reached its limit, and it will explode soon. The demon is impressed that he figured that out and admits he doesn't care if half the city is destroyed as long as he obtains the holy sword. He orders the female demon to fight the ladies, but she refuses, saying they shouldn't kill more humans. But he says it's self-defense. Bax calls him a liar before collapsing from exhaustion, so Theron tells Gazis to look after him, as they get ready to fight the demons. Kyle tells Theron to join the girls, but he says he is curious about something else and steps away from the fight. The female demon faces Urza and Lise. Although she has no intention of killing them, she tells them to flee, saying they can't defeat her. And Lise charges towards her, but she easily dodges Lise's strike and knocks her into the wall. Then she charges at Urza, who manages to escape her hit and summons a salamander to fight, but the demon easily dodges all of its attacks and kicks Urza back. Theron watches from the sidelines and says it's like she's playing with them. Selonia appears and says the female demon can predict their moves and asks if he's still not going to fight. He says the demon is not trying to kill them, and that she's holding back. Selonia agrees with him, and he asks if she knows anything about the mysterious cube he took from the governor's pocket. She examines it and says it's used to conceal a magical item. He reveals that when the demon mentioned the sword, he noticed Bax looking back, meaning he had hidden something in the cave. She gives him the cube back, and he steps away. He breaks the cube, which reveals a hidden passage in the wall. Meanwhile, Kyle dodges the demon's attack, who asks if all he's going to do is run away. Kyle realizes the demon has high magical powers and can cast spells without much effort, and that he's nowhere near defeating him. The demon launches several energy balls, but Kyle leaps up and attacks him, but he easily blocks it and blasts him away, which injures Kyle. The demon laughs at him and creates a large energy ball, and mocks him, saying he'll be careful to keep his parts intact so that he can get a proper burial. On the other hand, Theron discovers a hidden box. He slices it in the middle, which causes his sword to be shattered. Inside lies the holy sword, Rand. He takes the sword and proudly shows it off, immediately drawing both demons' attention. Seeing the demons distracted, Kyle charges at him while Urza orders the salamander to attack the female with flames, and even dodges Lisa's surprise attack. However, when the girls notice blood dripping from the female's face, they realize they successfully landed a blow on her. As she prepares to attack them, the male demon suddenly screams in pain. It is revealed that Kyle managed to slice one of his horns. Then he places his foot on the broken horn and threatens to crush it if he tries to attack. The demon tells him to remove the foot immediately. Kyle knows a demon's horns are a symbol of their pride, and losing one reduces them to a low-class sub-demon. Theron approaches them, while proudly showing off the holy sword Rand, claiming it is perfect for him. The female demon demands the sword back, but he says he didn't take it from them. Then, Kyle suggests a temporary truce, allowing both sides time to recover before fighting again in 3 days. He says that if the demons win, they get the sword and the broken horn, but if they lose, they must reveal the identities of all the demons that have infiltrated human society. He taunts the demon by asking whether he's afraid to fight an inferior being later, which hits right to the demon's ego, and he accepts the challenge. Then he blasts one of the walls, before leaving with his partner, saying they'll return in 3 days. After that, the group carries Gazus and backs back to the city, where Miranda and Go wait for them. Miranda rushes towards Gazus and immediately breaks down. Go also approaches him with tears in his eyes, really glad to see they survived. Kyle suggests they should head inside first. While Bax rests in bed, Gazus explains that although he chose the wrong path, his heart beats for the city. Kyle asks when he first learned about the kidnappings. Gazus replies it happened a month ago and says he begged Bax to stop, but he refused and instead threatened to kill both Go and Miranda if he interfered. So for their safety, he kept it a secret. Kyle says that Theron found the holy sword and he demands that he return it because it belongs to the city. Kyle argues that saving lives matters far more than a sword and reminds him that when his home was attacked, Theron and the others kept Go safe. He also points out that he was the one who fought off the demon at the embassy, where Miranda might have died, and because of that they deserve a proper reward. Then he reveals a piece of mithril ore, surprising Gazus, and he adds that they mined some mithril from the ruins of Zarls and are ready to hand over all of it if he agrees to forge weapons for them. He adds that they have so much mithril for Gazus to even craft his own holy sword. In exchange, he only wants Rand, so Gazus agrees on their terms. Then he gives him the blueprint of the item he wants created. Gazus says it will take 3 days, but he tells him to complete it in 2, so Gazus says it will be challenging and leaves to start on it right away. Kyle thinks that they're almost ready. Later, he checks on Lise and Urza, who are fine as their opponent didn't land a proper hit. He also tells them not to force it if they don't want to fight. However, both refuse to back down now. Then he approaches Theron and warns him that if the male demon overpowers him, he should kill it from behind. Theron calls him sneaky before asking whether delaying the fight was really necessary. He says it is because they are also desperate for something. He reveals that he needed something more than the sword to force into something, which is why he cut his horn. Next, Kyle and Selonia return to the tunnel to stop the catalyst from exploding. She says she could safely release the magic stored in it, but Kyle suggests transferring all the energy into the dragon's heart. She admits it might work, though this will take several days. He asks if the spell to draw up more ore veins could work, and she explains that it wouldn't because there is no ore left in the ground. Even if there were any, it would have caused significant damage to the city. Then they begin the transfer spell and all they have to do is wait. For the next few days they all begin preparing for the coming duel back at the embassy. Lise and Urza train for the fight while Theron relaxes and Selonia helps Go with his research. And using the mithril he provided, Gazus prepares the weapon he wants. With every passing moment, Kyle becomes even more determined to win. The night before the fight, Selonia complains she can't sleep because Theron snores too loudly beside her, but Kyle tells her to let him rest since they can't afford to lose this battle. On the 3rd day, they return to the tunnel for the duel. However, they realize they didn't discuss the exact time, forcing them to wait for them, and they decide to have some snacks and tea. Kyle asks the girls whether they have a plan to defeat the demon, and they say they do. After a while, the demons finally arrive and are surprised that they didn't run away. Kyle asks why they're late, though the demons seem annoyed by their behavior and ask if they're mocking them. Kyle says it is time to settle this, though he thinks they should head elsewhere since this area is too cramped for both duels. The male demon lets Kyle choose the place where he wants to die, but the female thinks it would give them an advantage. But he says nothing is going to stop him from killing Kyle, and they both walk away. Theron asks Selonia why she is not going with him, but she says her job is to report if things get out of hand here. Although she admits she should stay near the sword, the female demon asks him if he is going to fight, but he says he's only there to watch. The demon doesn't want to fight, but to get the sword, she has to, and warns them that she's not going to hold back this time. She unleashes her full power and tells them to surrender quickly if they don't want to die. Theron thinks they will be fine if they're careful. Suddenly, the demon charges toward Lise and starts punching so fast that she cannot see them. Yuzra tries to help by summoning a salamander to attack with flames, but she easily steps away, forcing Lise to hide behind a pillar to avoid getting caught in the fire. Then the demon charges towards Urza and knocks the salamander away, and even after Urza summons the Earth Norm to protect her, the Norm manages to grab her, giving an opening for Lise to attack. However, the demon fights back. Then the demon breaks the Norm's arm to get free and knocks it out. Selonia asks Theron if he is still not going to intervene, but he says he'll let them handle it. Urza says no matter how tough she is, she must still have a weakness. When the demon charges at them again, Uzra quickly summons the Earth Norm and signals Lise to kick it so hard that a part of its rock strikes the demon. Then Lise lands a punch through it to her stomach. And while she's still not recovered, Lise lands another punch so hard that she is unable to stand. Meanwhile, Kyle finally leads the male demon to a new location. Back with the girls' fight, the demon tries to attack Lise, but she dodges and punches her again. Then Urza lets the salamander use a powerful blast that completely surrounds the demon. According to Urza, no demon can survive this. The two high-five each other while Urza thanks her spirits and says they can finally rest. Theron is surprised that it ended quickly, but Selonia thinks they spoke too early because the demon survived the attack, shocking the girls. She points at Lise and demands to know how she managed to dodge her attacks earlier. Lise explains that although she is fast, she keeps repeating the same moves which makes her predictable. Urza adds that she was much better when she was holding back. Lise asks if this is her first real fight, while Urza thinks she lacks experience, because every time they use a new move, she panics and gives them a chance to attack. Though they know they can only say this because their plan worked. The demon thinks for a moment and thanks them for the honest feedback and surrenders. She admits she underestimated them. Theron asks whether she's serious, while Selonia refuses to believe it. She says that she isn't afraid of them and surrendering to humanoids makes her blood boil. But they're under strict orders and she wants to return home, so she's giving up on the holy sword. Then she asks what they want to do with her prisoner, but they have no idea what to do and decide to let her go. Theron strongly objects that they can't let a demon walk away. However, Urza mentions that Kyle wanted more information about the demon's mission, so she asks her how many demons have infiltrated human society. The demon reveals that only the two of them received such orders and says there are no other demons. Lise asks if she's certain, but she says that if other demons might have come here on their own, she wouldn't know about it, and says that if they want, she can hang out together, but they are instantly embarrassed about it. They tell her to get lost now and she turns to leave, but before that, she asks for their names. After they introduce themselves, she reveals that her name is Uliga and then walks away. And Selonia can't believe that a demon gave her name just like that. Then she notices Theron is no longer beside her, since he suddenly attacks Uliga from behind to test his new blade. Meanwhile, the male demon asks Kyle about his horn, and Kyle reveals it is tied to his armor. The male demon says he'll be careful not to crush it and asks if they can start the fight now. Kyle notes the demon is good at long-range attacks, so he must get close to him. He casts spells to boost his skills and then charges ahead, but the demon allows his sword to penetrate his arm before attacking him with an energy sphere. Kyle manages to get away in time. The demon looks at his wound and considers it a punishment for letting a human push him this far. He sees determination in Kyle's eyes and says it reminds him of the last great war with humans before firing multiple energy spheres at him. He falls on the ground but manages to escape the second barrage. Kyle charges again, though he calls it a suicide charge and launches another round of energy spheres. Kyle manages to get close to him, but he still cannot break through his defenses and gets smashed into a wall. Despite the pain, Kyle stands up and threatens to destroy his horn if he comes any closer. He says that the horn matters to him, but he won't risk his life to get it back. So Kyle throws it into the air, and while he is distracted, Kyle charges forward, stabs him, and pushes him into the wall. He laughs and asks if it is the best he can do, but the wall behind them suddenly breaks, and they crash to the other side, filled with burning lava. Kyle attacks again, but he escapes and counters with another sphere that disarms and knocks him to the ground. The demon praises him for surviving so long and calls him a challenging foe, but states that he was doomed to fail since he cannot match his strength. However, Kyle hasn't given up yet and says he knows how strong demons are, which is why he takes out a bottle from his bag and smashes it onto him. He wonders what substance it is, and Kyle explains it's a powerful adhesive created by Go. Then he pulls out the mithril chain that Gazus made from the lava and wraps it around the demon. The chain burns him, though he says this pain means nothing and tries to break free. But Kyle says he can't escape, because it is completely made of mithril. Then he points his sword at his neck and tells him to answer his questions. Kyle asks if the current Demon King wants to avoid war with humanoids, and he reveals that the daughter of the last king, Ruiza, doesn't want to fight and only seeks the holy sword. He explains they were sent here only to scout the area because the pro-war demons pressured Ruiza into doing it. Kyle asks if the faction wants to remove her from the throne, but he reveals that she's too powerful for anyone to overthrow directly. Then Kyle asks the last question, whether one of the heirs to the throne is a hornless demon with black wings. The demon asks if it is a joke since demons would never allow a hornless ruler to sit on the throne, and there is no black-winged demon powerful enough to become king. Kyle says that he knows nothing about the future Demon King and wants to finish him off. But the demon offers to arrange a meeting with Ruiza, where he can ask her himself. Kyle accepts it but warns that it shouldn't be a trick. However, he laughs at how foolish Kyle is, because he is waiting for an invisible demon to find an opening and he orders the kill, but Kyle slices it without even looking. He wonders how he knows about it, and Kyle reveals that he noticed him looking at it. He figures out that the dead demon was the one who massacred the embassy, and he knows that he calls them invisible assassins. He wonders how he knows about his secret weapon, and Kyle calls him by name Garnias, which shocks him even more, as he never told him his name. Kyle explains they have crossed paths before, back when he was more loyal to his Demon King than he is now. Kyle admits he's indeed strong, though he no longer fears him. Then he kicks the demon into the lava. He says that Garnias killed many of his friends in the other timeline, but he was also the one who provided the location of the Demon King's castle. Garnias' body starts burning as he curses humans, though Kyle says that it will take some time to burn him completely, and he walks away. Meanwhile, it is revealed that Theron killed another invisible assassin who was about to kill Uliga. Lise asks him if he attacked her from behind, but he says that he just saved her life, and Selonia asks if the male demon sent this bug to kill her. Uliga says that's true since she was obligated to report that a human cut off his horn. Theron says he was only trying to help, although he intended to kill Uliga, but switched targets when the assassin appeared. Uliga then leaves, saying she'll always remain in their debt, while the girls look forward to fighting her again. However, Theron worries that Kyle will be angry because he wouldn't be happy that they let the demon go. Next, Theron trains with his new sword. Kyle says it suits him well, while he really wants to fight with it. Kyle asks what he thinks about the demons. He says they are all strong, though not as terrifying as the legends make them sound. He asks if he means he imagined demons to be like a nightmare, but after meeting them, he realized they aren't very different from humans. Theron agrees and adds that they shouldn't fear them. Kyle grabs his head and says they really do think alike. However, he still can't believe Theron let the female demon go after he told him not to do that. He thinks that if Theron thought she was a threat, he wouldn't have let her live. He thinks that after 3 centuries of temporary peace, something must have changed in both humans and demons. Soon the girls join them after recovering from their injuries. Kyle says they both were amazing and glad that they both survived, but they say it was not a big deal and tell him not to overreact. Next, Kyle and Selonia visit Go's house. He is happy to see them, and while Kyle goes ahead to meet Gazus, he wants to talk to Selonia about something. Gazus is already back at his desk working when Kyle arrives and asks how he's feeling. He replies he's fine and hopes he hasn't come with another unreasonable request. As Kyle and the others leave the city the next day, Gazus wants to give them a parting gift. He shows him the new sheaths he prepared for his and Theron's holy blade from the mithril ore he gave. He says that he owes him a big time and promises not to waste the opportunity he gave him. Outside the house, Go asks Selonia if she's really leaving. She says that Kyle wants to depart early in the morning, so he asks if she can stay and live with him forever, but she refuses, saying she must follow Kyle wherever he goes. He insists they have so much fun and he wants her to teach him more things, but she tells him not to worry as she already taught him all about the golems, and she's sure he will be able to complete it in time. He laughs briefly before realizing he has to say goodbye to her, but she tells him not to take it personally because she belongs to Kyle. She then adds that he has a lot of potential and encourages him to continue pursuing what he believes in. He says he'll do his best. Just then, Kyle joins them, and Selonia asks if he's done already. He says yes and tells Go to take care of himself and finish the golem quickly. As they leave, Go wonders why Kyle even needs Selonia when he already has Lise and Urza by his side. Then Kyle goes to see Miranda. She informs him that Governor Bax has passed away, and even in his last breath, he was still thinking about Karen's glory. Because of his illness, he didn't have much time left, and after learning that all his efforts to save the city were meaningless, he just got worse. Miranda says that before dying, he confessed to everything, including hiring thugs to kidnap people and drain their life force. She thinks the situation has gotten better for the city, yet the issues with the Empire still remain unresolved, as they will blame Zergus for the embassy attack and may make serious demands now that Queen Molina has cancelled the engagement. He says it is a tough situation, though he can't help her in it. She also tells him that Gazus has agreed to be the next governor, but he says that he just met him earlier at the house. She explains that Gazus agreed on the condition that he work in the gorge while she handles the daily desk work. She is happy that he started working again, and he's grateful to him for saving both the city and his life. He adds that Gazus even gifted him and Theron sheaths for their swords. Then he mentions that Go recently got caught up in financial trouble, and he knows that she is the one pulling strings behind it. She seems scared, so he explains that since Bax used to threaten Gazus, he distanced himself from her, which she couldn't accept. When she learned that Go was looking for investors, she thought it was a good opportunity to get close to him. So she told some impatient people about it, and when things would have gotten out of control, she would have rescued him herself and earned gratitude from him. She asks if he has any actual proof, but he doesn't because she was careful not to leave anything behind. She says it is very unfortunate and asks how he reached those particular accusations. He replies that it wasn't difficult, because when it comes to manipulation and schemes, she is a mastermind. He then tells her to keep the details of Go's project a secret, and no one else can learn about it now. She agrees to it and says it wouldn't be a problem. However, she wants to know if he believes Go can succeed, and he adds that he wouldn't have invested in it if he thought it would fail. Although he knows the secret will come out, it won't happen anytime soon, because they only need to keep it hidden for 3 years. She asks the reason, so he tells her not to worry about it and says she finally has a reason to be happy again. She asks if a manipulator like her deserves happiness. He laughs and admits he likes seeing her smile. Confused about what he means, she asks if they have ever met before. He recalls memories from the previous timeline but says they met here for the first time. The next day, they leave the city bidding farewell to their friends. Theron feels upset for not being able to use the sword, though Kyle tells him to be patient because they have to return to Zergus and report to the Queen. The girls worry the Empire must be planning something big after the cancellation of the engagement and the attack on their embassy. Kyle adds that the demons are up to something, and humans can't fight among themselves as they won't stand a chance if the demons attack, so they need to unite the humanoids even before they could divide them. Meanwhile, at the castle, Molina receives news that all 3 princes have been summoned to the Gargan Empire, which will increase tensions between them, so she decides to send her subordinates on a new mission. Moreover, at Kyle's home, his mother worries about his safety when a strong gust of wind knocks a bedsheet over her head. Layla laughs at her clumsiness, and for struggling with non-magical things. Layla tells her she's leaving and that she should be careful since it is a crucial time for her. Back on the road, Kyle's party meets the convoy sent by Molina. Later, inside a carriage, Theron, Lise, and Urza spend time playing cards. The girls' competitive skills make the game more tense while Urza keeps losing, but Theron tells them to enjoy the ride. Whereas in another carriage, Kyle rides with Kilran and the old man. Kilran thanks Kyle for agreeing to join the mission, and he replies that it's an honor. He says he will tell the truth to the Empire that demons were behind the embassy attack, and she hopes this meeting will turn out well, as the peace between their kingdoms depends on that. The old man tells them not to put pressure on themselves because life will continue regardless of the result, and even if they fail, the war will cause massive destruction. Kilran tells him not to joke about the war, though he says he was only trying to lighten the mood. He tells them to relax while he uses his political experience, but Kilran jokes that he really knows politics, and they laugh awkwardly, making Kyle feel uncomfortable. Eventually, they enter the Gargan Empire, and the girls are excited to do some shopping, while Theron wants to meet beautiful girls, and Kyle is excited to meet the prince he knows from the previous timeline. Inside the royal castle, the 3 princes discuss the report of the attack in Karan, and most of them refuse to believe demons were involved. They also doubt that there exists any hero strong enough to defeat a demon, especially one stronger than Alzard. However, one prince named Mizar mentions hearing rumors about a hero from Zergis who may have defeated this demon, and the others decide to believe him. That night, a grand ball is held inside the castle, and Kyle's group attends it while Selonia just wants to eat sweets. Somewhere in the castle, Theron meets a girl. Later, Kyle also meets a girl near the fountain, just before one of the princes approaches him and asks him to serve him, threatening him to kill him if he doesn't give a reason not to. He explains he has no intention of allowing him on the opposite side. Elsewhere, inside a dark castle, Yuliga informs her boss that they failed to recover Rand and refers to her as Demon King Ruiza.